I think the 15 million Catholics in Brazil.
Well, they don't have a position.
Yes, you're right.
They're missing an action. As the French say, hors de combat. Hors de combat. Missing in action. That's the Catholic Church in the world today. And the main reason is because they can't address the question.
Welcome everyone, I am Weber Braga and this is the podcast Guerra Cultural Brasil. Today I'm here with Dr. E. Michael Jones. He is a prolific Catholic writer, lecturer, journalist and editor of Cultural Wars magazine. He's written several influential books, including Libido Dominandi, Sexual Liberation as Political Control, Dionysus Rising, in Degenerate Moderns. And today we will also be talking about his newest book, Walk with a Bible and a Gun, The Rise and Fall and Return of American Identity. Dr. Jones, it's a pleasure to have you here with us. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. By the way, I think my book Libido Dominandi is available in Portuguese and it's published in Brazil.
Yes, it's a great news. I have heard that your book Dionysus Rising and Living Machines are now available in Portuguese for your Brazilian audience.
Right. Good news. Yes, but the latest book is Walking with a Bible and a Gun, about American identity, by which I mean the United States of America and the roots of where our identity came from.
Yes, of course. And that's why we are here. We'll talk a lot about your newest book. Dr. Jones, I want to start exactly in this point, so something you have spoken about in your articles. And I came up with some really deep and insightful reflections during your trip to Croatia in 2024, especially about the ethnic tensions that shaped Yugoslavia in that period of time. I mean, the 90s. Thank you for that. That period was catastrophic for the region as well, for Brazilians everywhere. I remember my father talk about the news in that time. There was in Serbia, Bosnia. Today we know that what really happened in that period. I mean, ethnic cleansing. And I think it shocked the world in the same way as Gaza is happening to make this impression to all of us. As you have said, Yugoslavia had a very complex internal situation involving religion, race, and national identity. Here in Brazil, our society is mixed. I'm in triracial myself, my wife too. But despite our racial diversity,
Did you say triracial?
yes.
What are the three races?
I'm Indian, Portuguese, and black. My wife she is half Italian and Arabic, and half Spanish and Indian from the Uruguay. So,
you're going to have really complicated children.
Yes, for sure.
At least six different ethnic identities.
Yes, you're right. I think if you do the math, they are mixes in unknowns away.
Yep.
But we are Catholics in Brazil.
I think in a situation like that, you have to have some type of simplification, because all of those it becomes too complicated. I'm saying in the United States, it became too complicated when you had two races. Like me, I'm half Irish and half German, so I'm biracial. That became too complicated, and so you needed another identity. And in America, the identity was religion. That's called the triple melting pot. After 3 generations, your religion becomes your ethnic group in the United States of America. And I understood that after I did a book on Yugoslavia, because the situation was the same in Yugoslavia. three ethnic groups based on three religions. In Yugoslavia, it was Serb, Croat, and Muslim.
You're right. So I was thinking, you said that America has a similar ethnic complex similar to the Yugoslavia in the 90s. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
In Brazil, we have this perception that in America we have only Protestants, but I think it's a misconception. You show in a book that in United States face one version of ethnic identity complex. So is there a kind of hidden ethnic drama in America too?
Yes. Well, it's not hidden. I mean, it's obvious out in the open. What Emmanuel Todt wrote a book in French about the collapse of the American empire, and he said it was due to the evaporation of Protestantism, which I think is true. But I don't think he understands the hidden grammar of Protestantism. That's the problem with his book. We need to go deeper than that. But the evaporation of Protestantism is going to cause an identity crisis for people of the United States of America, because even if you weren't a Protestant, you had a kind of Protestant identity. America, according to Samuel Huntington, an American was an Anglo-Protestant. And so when the Catholics came over here, how am I going to be an American? That was the example. What do I have to give up in order to be an American? Now, is that what happened in Brazil? Did you do you have a national Brazilian identity? Are there subgroups? Are there ethnic groups in Brazil other than the complicated thing you just told me about? In other words, how do the Brazilians divide themselves up?
It's a complicated question because in Brazil, all situations similar to the Hispanic countries that after the independence, they became all en masse, and they always are struggling to define the identity and then fail. In Brazil, Republic starts targeting several ethnic groups, and they are all cleaned. There is no this diversity that you had 100 years ago. But the main problem today is there is a demographic conflict between Protestants. They are close to 20% of the population in small groups such as Spiritism, Kardecism, and the majority is Catholic. I say for myself, I was born Catholic, I was baptized, and after that, my parents, they became Protestant. I returned to the Catholic Church in my adulthood. All people act like Protestants, and generally they live in the Protestant sects, but they are Catholics. They are baptized. There is the custom to take your child, you go to the mass, you baptize, but after that you don't provide Catholic education, they become Protestant. There is a lot of factors aligned with this phenomenon, but I think that Brazil is Catholic in his identity, but there is a official narrative that say Brazil is laicized and there is no need to talk about religion.
You wrote an article for us about the Rockefellers, the influence of the Rockefellers in Brazil.
Yes, right.
Nelson Rockefeller used to promote Protestantism throughout Latin America during the 1940s because they were mainly interested in demographic issues, and they knew if Brazilians became Protestants, they would use birth control. And so it was a covert attack, a covert demographic attack on the people of Brazil, which then got adopted by the government of the United States, and that was imposed on the entire world, largely because of Nelson's brother, John D. Rockefeller III, who created something called the Population Council. So was the rise of the American empire. These people were able to set birth quotas for the entire world. and try to promote. They promoted population control throughout the 1970s.
Yes, when the Rockefellers they came to Brazil, they promote these ideas like population control, and in certain the same thing that's saying everyone became a virtual Protestants, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you start using birth control, you're basically a Protestant. You've become a Protestant. If you get an abortion, you become a and that's what happened to the women, Catholic women in the United States of my generation. They started acting out during the sexual revolution. They had abortions, and then after that, they became feminists. Feminism was a political movement that grew out of Marxism, led like Betty Friedan, whose maiden name was Goldstein. And so you eventually voted like a because you were a feminist.
I agree. When you say the feminism, they are you say they became feminists from the beginning, or in a certain time they took control of the movement? Because
So yeah, I think the controlled that movement from the beginning. If we're talking about the 1970s, and the main vehicle they used for feminism was abortion. The Rockefellers promoted birth control, but promoted abortion. And so in the early 1970s, let's say 71, 72, you had the two states where the most was New York and California. And in both of those states, were promoting the overthrow of the laws prohibiting abortion. In New York were Lawrence Lader and Bernard Nathanson. And there, after overturning the laws in New York and California, the succeeded in overturning all of the laws in the United States with the Supreme Court decision Roe versus Wade. And that was the law of the land until 3 years ago, when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade and instituted the Dobbs decision. At that point, the said that abortion was a fundamental value. They had never said that before. And I think it was a mistake. I think they know they made a mistake by doing that, because they're not saying it anymore. They've changed their slogan to reproductive freedom is a fundamental value. But they did say it for years. For about 2 years, they said abortion is a fundamental value. So I'm saying if Catholic women who became feminists became de facto, and I think one of the main reasons driving feminism was abortion. If you do not repent, you have to join a political movement that makes you feel that what you made the right decision.
right. I think the feminism is a such type of cultural phenomenon that's now massive. You have the media, for example, Netflix, they have a lot of series with feminist themes. A lot of girls, they become young and feminist. So you have this difficulty in try to address this feminist influence in Catholic populations. They become feminists, but they don't know that. So when you start to address the problem of feminism, they take this with certain type of religion, faith, and you can move that. So am I right when I say feminism is a type of religion today?
It's the religion. They call it feminism, but it's basically the religion. You think like a you act like a because that's what abortion does to your mind. When you have that, you have the guilt now. You can't. You can confess your sins if you're a Catholic. You can go to confession, but if you don't do that, you need a political movement to support you and the fact that you did something wrong and you can't admit that it was wrong. So you need a lot of support from a lot of different people to convince you made the right decision when you killed your own child. So what you're going to see now is the loss of influence that is happening in the United States right now is going to weaken feminism.
Yes. And the feminists they are take side in this battle, or you become a Jewish or you became a Catholic. Is right?
Well, if you repent, you can stay as Catholic, but if you don't, you're going to need that political movement to support you.
Okay, I was saying that there is this confusion in the woman's mind, and I think that there is a lot of mental struggle to come with one certain frame of mind. And I think we could talk about the categories of the mind. When people are entering the adulthood, they choose a path to follow, and people they follow, for example, the new conservatism or traditional Catholicism. I would like to ask, are these categories obsolete?
If you're talking about neoconservatism, yes, it's over. It's not an obsolete category. It's an obsolete political movement because it was based on the concept of Judeo-Christian morality. The Catholics shared the same morality. That was the hidden grammar of conservatism. And after the abortion decision was overturned, the broke the category by saying that abortion's a fundamental value. So the same. Well, you're talking about the subversion of categories of reality, like the moral law. How do you subvert this category? You come up with new categories like freedom, like reproductive freedom, which seems to be a good idea, but it's really just a subversion of the category of the reality known as morality.
I ask you about the new conservatism because in Brazil there's a lot of movements that take these ideas of new cons or the 90s.
Is Bolsonaro a neoconservative?
He is a sect of the new conservatives. He's a great Israel supporter.
Yes, that means he's a neoconservative. If he supports Israel, yeah. And if he's a member of an evangelical sect, he's a neoconservative. So they're completely ineffective in dealing with Lula and the left wing people. So it looks to me as if politics in Brazil oscillates back and forth between neoconservatism and socialism.
Yes, I think in Brazil the discourse is everything is communist or conservative, but you have these problems that such type of issues you can put in one side or in other. So, for example, everything everybody in Brazil is taken side in the Israeli in Palestinian conflict, and you know that is a religious problem in certain ways, but the common people cannot articulate in a rightful way. The left parties they take the side in the Palestinian conflict. Lula he talked about Palestine in rigid terms about genocide and starvation of population. People, if they are conservative or right-wing position, they are talking about Palestine and say, well, it's genocide. So there is no way to conciliate these political positions and the problem you have in Gaza. What is the next move if you, for example, you are a politician, you can address the problem without the proper categories. So, for example, you talk about starvation and genocide, but it's the problem directly related to Israel. But you cannot talk about nationalism or some type of political position. You should talk about religion. What do you think?
All right, so the left is against Israel and pro-Palestine, and the right is pro-Israel and against Palestine. Where do the Catholics stand? What is the Catholic? Do the Catholics have a position, or do they all just align themselves with either the right or the left?
I think they do not take a side.
Why don't they? Because both of those positions is wrong. The left says it's wrong to kill babies with an F-16, but it's okay to kill them with abortion. And the right says it's wrong to kill them with abortion, but it's okay to kill them with F-16s. Both of those positions are contradictory. Why can't the Catholics articulate their own position?
I don't know. I think the church has some fault of position. They don't have the courage to take the problem in the right way. I think.
Or is it they're crippled by the church's position on the? Is that the problem? They can't take a strong position because they lost their identity. Is this an identity problem? Is it a courage problem? Is it an identity problem? Do Catholics know who they are? If they don't have their own political position, I don't think they know who they are. Why can't
Yes.
I said this to the same thing with the Irish. Ireland is a Catholic country, or was a Catholic country. I met Irish politicians in when I was in Iran, and I asked them, why is it okay to kill babies with a suction curette in abortion, but not okay to kill them with F-16s? And they couldn't answer the question because they are in rebellion against the church's teaching on sexuality, and they've lived their entire lives in rebellion, and they can't understand their own position because their minds have been darkened by their commitment to sexual liberation.
Yes, and the majority of priests or bishops they cannot talk about these problems. Instead, they choose to talk the same grammar of the political parties. But the people in Brazil, they start to think about that, but they cannot articulate why this happened. Why the people, the lay people who is not in the church, they cannot address these problems. So, for example, in Brazil, we have this problem with the pension funds and
With the what?
the pension of
Oh, the
the elderly
pension fund.
people.
Okay, pension fund. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
You wrote a book about this, the bare metal, and you explain how the people they took over, they entered in third world countries policy making of social security, and they vanish with all the money. In Brazil, we have the constant problem of how the elderly people will have money when they retire. We cannot address the problem because we cannot talk about the Jews and the money and where is the money is going and what's left. The people they start to suffer from the
Yeah,
financial consequence of
yeah,
this.
yes. Am I the only Catholic who can address this issue in Brazil?
Yes,
Okay,
you are.
okay. All right, well, that's what we got to do. What am I going to say? We'll have the podcast. You can write articles. I've got 2 books translated into Portuguese. We'll just have to start talking to the Brazilian people and explain the contradiction. Situation is no different than Germany. Germany is in exactly the same situation because the German Catholic Church has been paralyzed by their misunderstanding of the Jewish question. It's more complicated in Germany because they are constantly reminded that they are guilty of the Holocaust. Now, this is changing. I've told you before. Have you heard me talk about the American republics, the 3 republics? Have you heard me talk about that?
Yes, I would like to ask you about this.
Yeah. Well, the first republic began in 1781 with the Constitution. Ended 80 years later. Nothing lasts longer than 80 years, which is the life of a man. Okay. That republic ended in 1861 with the Civil War. Next republic began in 1865, the end of the Civil War, lasted until 1945, which is the end of World War II. That's the Third Republic. The foundational myth of the Third Republic is the Holocaust. That is was created to cover American war crimes in World War II. It was created by the because they controlled Hollywood. They had a lot of power in terms of making films. And now it's coming to an end because the Third Republic is coming to an end. During this Third Republic, the church had the Second Vatican Council. During that council, it basically adopted the Holocaust narrative. I think Cardinal Ratzinger, Pope Benedict, Pope Benedict XIV was responsible for this.
Yes.
That's coming to an end. It's a failed experiment. So in all of these countries, you have this huge political potential because of the Catholic Church, millions and millions of people, billions of people actually, but they can't articulate their own position because they've internalized the commands of their oppressors. Are the people that killed Christ. They are enemies of the entire human race. The Catholic Church has to stand against them, and now the church is not standing against them, and so the church lost all of its political power. So nothing's going to change until the church starts preaching the gospel, both in Brazil. Is Brazil the largest Catholic country in the world? Is that the country that has the most Catholics in the world?
Yes, 10% of the Catholic population.
How many hundreds of millions of Catholics do you have there? You have 300 million Catholics or something like that? How many Catholics are in Brazil?
I don't have the precise numbers. I think the 15 million Catholics in Brazil.
Well, they don't have a position.
Yes, you're right.
They're missing an action. The French say hors de combat. Hors de combat. Hors de combat. Missing in action. That's the Catholic Church in the world today. And the main reason is because they can't address the question. Because the American empire is essentially a operation. The control the American empire, and we don't know how to break that political control. We tried to vote for Donald Trump because he said he was America first. Well, he's Israel first. And now the Trump coalition is falling apart. But you understand what I'm saying? We have an identity crisis here. We don't know who we are as Catholics. Sun Tzu said, if you don't know who you are and you can't identify the enemy, you will lose every battle. And where is the intellectual leadership of the Catholic Church? Who is it? Is it me? Am I the only Catholic out there who has a Catholic position? There are plenty of Catholics who represent all kinds of other positions. Am I the only Catholic that represents a Catholic position in the world? I mean, in terms of a man who writes books, an intellectual, is that it? Is there anybody in Brazil who's doing this?
I think that you are the only writer that talk about the right problems. I think.
Well, good. I'm glad we're having this conversation then.
Thank you for that, Dr. Jones. You have been a writer in editor of Cultural magazine for almost 45 years. Am I correct?
Yes, 45 years. That's right.
I know you have been talking a lot much for Catholic audience around the world. I know that because here in Brazil you have several of Catholic readers as well. You said that Pope Francis failed to address some important topics during his papacy, such as Medjugorje apparitions and the problem of usury. What's the chance they remain the same way? Do you think that Pope Leo 14, he talk about these problems, try to solve them?
Okay, so first of all, I was able to contribute to the papal encyclical Laudate Si when it came out because I had a contact in the State Department. And so I submitted something about the ecological consequences of debt or usury. I said usury, but they changed the word to debt in places like Ecuador, for example, where the World Bank will lend a country money, and then when the country can't pay it back, the World Bank will take the rainforest or some type of natural resource. Okay, I was successful in doing that. The Pope used the word usury. Pope Francis used the word usury, stated that it was a problem when he went to the United Nations. So I think that was successful, and I think Pope Leo the 14th is also issued a statement on usury. So I think that the church is willing and able to address this problem. Okay,
Yeah.
I think that will something could happen there. Now I'm trying to create an alliance with the Muslims who already understand the problem, and they spend a lot of time dealing with the problem of usury. So if there were a world coalition between Catholics and Muslims against usury, we're talking about what, 3 billion people? That's a lot of people. That's a significant percentage of the population of the United States. How are we going to address this? How are they going to, what are they going to draw upon here? There is patrimony in the Catholic Church that they can draw upon. First of all, the church has never changed its teaching on usury. It has always been a sin. It is a sin now. The question is a particular instrument usurious? And that Pope, Benedict XIV addressed this in his encyclical. What's the name of the encyclical? Anyway, he addressed it in his encyclical. Vix Purvena is the name of the encyclical. He addressed it in the encyclical and left the details into the private forum. If we could, this would require a change in heart. But again, if you're dealing with this, you're dealing with the question, because the main forces supporting usury in the United States of America are, and the money that these people have earned largely as a result of the tax changes that Reagan and Thatcher made in the United States and England has allowed them to make enormous amounts of money. Enormous amount of money has been transferred upward in the United States of America from the middle class to the ultra rich. And they have so much money, they can buy up the entire political process. They have bought up every single member of Congress except for 2 people. So that's the problem. And so the question is, how do you address this issue? Well, you first have to say it's a problem. First, you have to have a consensus among the Catholics that this is a problem that should be solved. And then, from there, it can be, once it's formulated, it can be articulated in the political arena. I think that Mamdani's election in New York, he's calling himself a socialist. That's what he calls. He's a Muslim, but he calls himself a socialist. Is a step in the right direction, because as a Muslim, he would be against usury. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in New York and how he proceeds.
Yes. I think the example you mentioned, the mayor of New York, the Muslims can talk about usury from the outside view because they live in a world where there is no usury, but we not, since we were born, our system is based on usury. So the church, I think they need a view from outside. I'm now searching about the Jeff Sachs moves inside the Vatican to push the church to take these green loans and create a general policy for all the churches outside the world to take these green loans to turn the churches such as Brazil more green. Do you think this is one move that we can now address?
What is a green loan? What does that mean? I have never heard the term green loans before. This is the first time I've ever heard that term.
Sorry for that. I think the technical term is green bonds. Have you heard about? I think
All right. What's a green bond? What does that mean?
You force the government to create or take more credit for international institutions that provide to green projects such as city, and you make it more sustainable.
By green, you mean environmentally sound
Yes,
or environmentally
yes,
sensitive? Okay. And
yes.
there are projects, the money they will lend you, the World Bank will lend you money for I don't know, solar panels or something like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
So the Vatican is now promote this type of ideas. So you can be more green in Catholic at the same time. So the world countries such as Brazil, Colombia, they are take this money precisely because people like Jeffrey Sachs is promoting these ideas. They have the incentives from first world countries, and I think the countries will become more in debt. And I think that the church is helping this happen. Why? I ask why the churches take this position. They have this encyclical about the environment, and they cannot address the problem of the usury. So I think this is effect of this problem. The Catholic Church cannot address the term.
Okay. I think you're right. I think that's the problem. The fundamental problem is the Catholics don't have an identity. They don't have an intellectual position anymore. And so they can't be active in the public sphere because you have to have some consciousness before you can act properly. They don't have a consciousness of themselves as Catholics. And I think they've been constantly confused by the mixed signals they've been getting from Rome, for example, on homosexuality. Rome under Francis was constantly sending mixed signals on homosexuality, and apparently now the same thing is happening under Leo, where he gets photographed with the same guy, with James Martin, who is determined to undermine the church's teaching on homosexuality. That's part of the problem. They don't understand the effect that these photo opportunities are having on demoralizing the faithful. The people for 50, 60 years now, 60 years now, the Catholics are confused about what they're supposed to believe. That has to be resolved. We especially now because we're at the end of the Third Republic. Okay, we need to basically say that certain experiments have failed, and we don't need to continue them anymore. And the main experiment that has failed is Catholic dialogue. It was a waste, worse than a waste of time. It eroded Catholic identity. It allowed the Catholics to come in and drag people into supporting projects like genocide, and that was the end of these conservative Catholic figures, like Robbie George. Are you familiar with Robbie George?
Sorry, I don't.
Well, they were influential neoconservative figures who claimed to be Catholic and neoconservative during the 1980s, largely at the time of when Reagan was president. That's when they got their start. And now they're representing a position that is totally obsolete, if not anti-Catholic. They're supporting the war in the Ukraine, which popes have condemned. We have reached a point where nobody knows what the Catholic position is.
Yeah, so I think for these people, or if you don't support America, you are not Catholic, all right? I'm right,
I think that's
because I
one
so
of the print. Look, this is how it started after World War II with the anti-communist crusade, and all Catholics were against communism. You know, the popes wrote about it. Pope Pius the 11th wrote encyclicals about communism, how it's incompatible. Okay, the main supporter of anti-communism was America, so that church naturally gravitated in supporting the foreign policy of the United States of America when it was anti-communist. Well, that's over. That era is over. That was the era of Fatima, and it ended when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. At that point, the United States should have ended NATO, but they didn't want that because the taken over our foreign policy, and they were determined to move NATO eastward and then finally destroy Russia. And
yes,
that's what got us into the war in the Ukraine. So that, like, my generation grew up with all of those ideas, and now they're all obsolete. They're all obsolete, and the opposite is the truth. And so a new generation is coming aboard, and those people, the younger people in their 20s and 30s, now know we have to face the question. And if you're unwilling to face the question publicly, they're not interested in supporting you. So that's the big change that is taking place. Jonathan Greenblatt, who's head of the Anti-Defamation League, said it's the biggest change that took place in his lifetime. Ever since the ADL has been taking polls, this is the first time that the younger generation is more anti-Semitic than the older generation.
Yes.
So that's the change. That's going to continue. And the main reason that most people are going to become more and more anti-Semitic is because of behavior. The have no understanding of the dangerous position they are in. They have no understanding that their policies are the source of anti-Semitism, that the policies they're pursuing have turned them into odious, hateful people for the entire world. They don't understand it. And so they're accelerating the policies, which means they are accelerating their own doom. That's the situation now. And the church should be able to comment on this. And it's not, because it's tied to these obsolete categories of the Third Republic, like Catholic dialogue, an erroneous misunderstanding of Nostra Aetate, and combined with fear based on blackmail. Priests and bishops succumbed to the sexual revolution. They did things that they shouldn't have done. And if they did, chances are some has a picture of them doing it. And so that explains the cowardice on the part of many bishops, or the stupidity of a bishop. Bishop Bombera of Scranton endorsed a document written by the American Committee, which said you're committing the sin of anti-Semitism if you say words like octopus and cosmopolitan. This is unheard of, that a Catholic bishop would lend his name to a proposition that is so irrational, so obviously false.
All right. The bishops and the priests, I think the Muslims, they never read the Nostra Aetate, but they are some type of slavers of its ideas. So, for example, in Brazil, in the 18th, there is a guy, his name was Siegfried Eisenwagner. His father is a German immigrant. In 18th, he started publish house. He translates the Leuchter Relatory to the Portuguese. So they talk about the ethnic cleansing of the Germans. And when the Nostra Aetate arrived in Brazil, they make this commission called Interreligious Commission. And one of the terms of the commission statute was the Catholic Church should persecute and destroy these publishing houses that in the time were talk about Holocaust. And now, as you say, Dr. Jones, the younger people are being pushed to talk about these problems. And they are looking for books about this, to come with new ideas in order to articulate these problems. In Brazil,
Can we get a Portuguese translation of my book, The Holocaust Narrative? Can we arrange that?
I would like very much to look for this. I think your book would you break this blockage about these themes.
I think it would. But I think that the Portuguese publishing my publishing house is afraid to do it. Will they get arrested? Will they do you have hate crimes laws in Brazil?
Yes, that there is a lot for everything, but I think the laws are not so effective as they were in the 90s or in the 80s.
Okay. Well, it's something we should look into.
Yes,
so we've been going for an hour. I need to get off, but look into that. See if you can find. I'll send you the name of my publisher. See if you can approach him and see if he's interested in doing the translation of the Holocaust narrative.
I glad we could talk about this
Okay.
environment.
All right, good. I will send you the name.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I would like to thank you for this conversation. Thank you for your time, Dr. Jones. And I hope in Brazil the consciousness about these problems can rise.
Good. And thank you for writing the articles in Culture Wars. We look forward to more articles from you in the future.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jones.
You're welcome.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.